If we look at the word resilience, most people look at this word as the bounce back. But oftentimes we can look at this as what do I need to self-care? And do I have the wherewithal, the vulnerability to ask for help? Because in the word resilience, which has 10 letters, embedded in those words, in those letters, is the word silence. How do we begin to hear our own voice in the resilience, right? And oftentimes I think what we don't do is take that respite for us to hear our own voice.
Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have a special guest here with us, John Register. So here are a couple questions for all of you who are listening or watching us. Where will you be on the other side of fear, on the other side of your mountain, on the other side of your breakthrough? Well, our special guest, John, is a speaker, he's a consultant, he's an author, and he's a C-suite advisor. And he believes that when our truth outweighs our fear, we will commit to a courageous life. And I've had the joy of getting to know John a little bit as part of a community that we're both members of. And I can absolutely say that, John, you are an incredibly courageous human being, and just so grateful to have you here with us today.
I am so thankful to be on with you. I'm fanning out on you. I mean, I've given a chance to be in the mastermind, and I'm just like, who is this woman? Just incredible. And I'm so honored to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you, John. I want to share a little bit more about your background, if that's all right, with our audience. So John is a combat Army veteran and a two-time Olympic trials qualifier in the hurdles. However, one misstep cost him his leg and ended both his Olympic dreams and military career. Yet since his amputation, John has won the long jump silver medal in Sydney, Australia, has advised 3 U.S. Secretaries of State, and founded the U.S. Olympic Committee's Paralympic Military Sports Program, which has helped tens of thousands of wounded veterans around the world use sports as a tool for their rehabilitation. His book is called 10 Power Stories to Impact Any Leader. And John, I've in being around you and geeking out on you as well a little bit, and hearing some of the things that you talk about, I know the impact that you have on leaders and on individuals in terms of helping them to be more resilient, more empowered, and to have a greater positive impact. So just really welcome to our show today. So grateful that you're here to share some of the stories, learnings with our audience.
Well, I'm honored to be here. And, however I can support and just share this journey. I think we're all in this journey together. We're all trying to become inspirational leaders, and I don't use that term lightly. I have since gone from hating that word of inspiration to actually becoming a term of endearment. Because I realized, the backstory is before I had my amputation, and we can get into that story there. When I was running for the University of Arkansas or went to the Olympic trials, a sports reporter would come out and interview me or the team on the athletic feat that we did, set a record, or, we won the national championship. And it would be great to be seen on the television, in the sports section, or in the paper. But when I became a para-athlete, because I had one leg, if a reporter came out, it would not be a sports reporter, it'd be a human interest reporter. And they would endeavorably always put me on the human interest page, in the life section, as the inspirational story. On the news, I would come out as the last segment of the day. So all this horrible news, but we have an inspirational story to end us for the evening. And I just did not like being the doormat for everybody else to feel better about their own lives. Thank goodness we're not like John. Thank goodness we have all of our limbs so that our lives are better. And that just did not sit well with me. But when I was in an airport gate waiting area with my artificial leg, my running leg, and I was wearing shorts, I was reading a newspaper. 2 boys were talking to their mother, and they were talking to their mom about my leg. saying, Mom, there's Robot Man. Robot Man's right there. See, look, Mom, there's Robot Man. And so I laughed, I chuckled, and I could hear him. Then everybody, a lot of people in the gate waiting area, they started in on the mom and the kids. Shut them up, get them out of here. It's so impolite to stare. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. But I kept reading my little paper. The mom gets up, she comes over and she excuses herself and says, excuse me, sir, my children are absolutely fascinated by your artificial leg. It looks like you've overcome uh, so many obstacles in life. You're such an inspiration. Would you please tell them what happened? And in that moment, I realized that just me wearing shorts, sitting in an airport, minding my own business, reading a newspaper, somebody was being inspired to act. And so I realized that inspiration is greater than what I was thinking about. Sorry. Um, and that it comes from the Latin word inspiro, which means to breathe into. And if my creator is breathing life, has breathed life into me, it's my duty, it's my obligation to breathe life into others. And so I began to use that term of inspirational leader as the inspiring somebody to act on what they're designed and destined to do. So it's not me, looking for purpose, manifestation. It's for me to breathe that into others, for them to have it, to impact their own spheres of influence. And I believe if all of us as leaders caught that vision, what a world we could build.
Mm, wow. Yeah, it's inspiring me right now, right? And it's cool. And I imagined you just, reading your newspaper there. I thought, it's in a way, it's an act of vulnerability in the sense of, somebody seeing something that is different than what they would see on a regular, quote unquote, regular basis. And it's it's uh, it's something that almost like gives permission for other people to be themselves, to allow maybe parts of themselves to be seen that they may normally hide under a piece of clothing or something else, right? Metaphorically, a piece of clothing. There's something about the courage to be yourself, I think, there, and of course. And not doing it in a way that was all about you, right? The intention was not, let me get some attention here today.
Right. The Here's what I understand now, having some distance from this. You're exactly right. The question I asked, and I ask audiences, so why is it that I was not courageous enough to be like that at first when I first had the amputation? Who told me that I was different, that I was not supposed to show up in this way? Who was I listening to? Who was in my psyche? Who was in my head that said that I was less than? And that's the thing that we have to, I think, in our mindset to overcome. It's not the amputation, because I did not overcome my amputation. If I would overcome my amputation, I would have my leg back. I don't. So I had to overcome something else, and it was my mindset. It was my mindset that said, I am more than I'm still the same person. I just can't do like 3% of the things that I used to do. So should I focus on those 3% or should I focus on the 97%? And who told me to believe that in the first place? So was it other people? Was it society? Was it when I watched Captain Hook as a 6-year-old for Peter Pan, and he's the antagonist in the movie Peter Pan? He's got his arm bit off by TikTok, the crocodile, and he's the villain. He's dark. He's mysterious. I'm afraid of him. So now I'm an amputee. Am I supposed to be afraid of myself? How many times do we see this in society when we come out during Halloween and we see people with mental disabilities, the Joker, the Penguin, and all these folks with physical disabilities, mental disabilities, and we terrorize ourselves by saying that's wrong. and we buy our ticket, we pay our money to be scared by those individuals. So then when they show up in our world, or we acquire a disability that looks like, aligns with, is sort of like what we see on our Halloween steps, then we don't know how to respond to that because we don't think we're a villain. But
Mhm.
yet society has told us this. So that is one of the things I think, where we have to move beyond and help people understand this process by going from this mindset to what Dr. Dan Siegel calls as a mindset. So mindset to mindset.
Yeah, that's right. So tell us a little bit more, if you don't mind. I imagine people are curious. How did you lose your leg?
Yeah, so I was in the military. I went to Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and then most people assume that's where I lost my leg, and it wasn't. I made it through Operation Desert Shield without a scratch. I was a two-time Olympic trials qualifier in the hurdles and in the long jump, and I was training for my third Olympic trials in the 400-meter hurdles. This day in Hayes, Kansas, I the wind was blowing hard. I misstepped one of the hurdles. I landed awkwardly, and that landing hyperextended my left leg. The dislocation then caused a disruption to my popliteal artery, and 7 days later, I made the election to amputate the leg just because the surgery was unsuccessful, and I'd be left with either being in a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of my life, or a fused leg, or I could take the amputation and try to get a semblance of my life back walking on an artificial leg. So that's how the injury happened. So you think about that, right? You are in your career. Many of you are in your careers right now, and you're thinking about another career that you want to do afterwards, and you lose both of those careers with one wrong step. How then do you change your mental capacity, your mindset? And I started going down that downward spiral. I started looking, remember the things we just talked about. What's my identity? Am I still a husband? Is my wife going to stick around? Is my son still going to see me as his father? Do I still have a job in the military? Can I support my family? I mean, my Olympic dreams are over. My military career is done. And in that moment, my wife, she saw me struggling, Alice. And Alice said, "You know what, John, we're going to get through this together.
Mm.
It's just our new normal." And when she spoke those words, she really, she baselined my entire existence and undergirded me with that love. So, who do you have in your team that will not allow you to fail when you can't do it for yourself? We've come through this huge shift, P word, right? Pandemic. And
Mm.
most people, we want to distance ourselves from that, but we really can't because this lives with us in perpetuity. And if we distance ourselves from, we're trying to say it did not exist, and the ramifications are no longer with us. So we have to really honor what's gone on so that we can be great advisors for what's coming up next, to be the leaders. And the case I give is, speaking for the Air Force Academy last year, I realized that this group of cadets that I was talking to were the first group that never had a high school graduation. And I had just gone to my high school graduation. They never had the homecoming dance. They never had the turnabout dance. They didn't have all the sports or the music festivals or the debate clubs. They didn't have any of that. And so what did they do for their 20th anniversary, their 30th anniversary? Honk their horns in a car? And if we don't think that that's going along with us right now, how dare we think that have distanced ourselves from that time period? It still stays with us. And so I think as leaders, we have to honor has gone on so that we can inform our decisions for the future.
That's right. That's right. And as part of honoring, as you said, is accepting what is.
Right.
And that's a tough thing to do sometimes when we're grieving the loss of a part of our body, grieving the loss of a reality, a world as we know it, a high school experience as we expect it.
Right.
So how do we go through that process of acceptance, that process of letting go, and it's not easy sometimes to do.
No, but you're right. I think the first step is to acknowledge. that, we are grieving. And I don't think enough CEOs have done that. I don't think enough CEOs have gone through the grieving process of that time to really ponder, to really think about what this means for the next level. What has happened, as we're now migrated online and things have shifted faster. We're now in artificial intelligence or advisory intelligence, however you want to call it, with AI. And we're moving so fast right now that we haven't even caught the breath to even catch up. I think, in my own life, I had to go through a process. And that process began with the reckoning moment. And the reckoning moment for me was realizing I was not going to get back what I desired to have back when my trauma impacted my life. I was not going to get back my leg. I was not going to get back my life as a world class athlete, at least in the form that I knew it. And I was not going to be, going back as a 20-year combat veteran in the United States Army as a career officer. Those things were gone. So I had to grieve that loss. And it was a fast grieving process because I didn't get on with things, but I still had to sit with it and really think about it for like about 3 weeks where I was just like, this is my life is different. What is that going to look like now? And then I went into what was the next. And the next for me in my model is the revision. The revision is beginning to look at what are some of the things that might be parallel paths that I might not have considered before, and what's in my toolkit, what's in my workshop that I have. So I had my degree of BA in communications. I still have my faculties about myself. I still have my humor and all these things. So I really began to look at some of the things that the Army offered to me, the TAPS program, Transition Assistance Program. And so this was a program that really helped me understand how I could match my skills in the civilian sector. So I wound up getting a job with the United States Army in the Army's World Class Athlete Program. I was once an athlete in it, and now I'm an administrator. So now I'm working in the Army for other athletes that I was once an athlete with, and I started swimming for physical therapy. The swimming turned into I got so fast in the water that I actually made the Paralympic swim team like 26 months after the amputation. So here I am going to Atlanta anyway as a Paralympic swimmer instead of a 400-meter hurdler. You can't write this stuff. It's just incredible. And I didn't even realize I had made the team, right? So that's a whole nother story. But when I get the call from Coach Cal, said you made the Paralympic swim team. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm going to Atlanta as a swimmer. I was floored. But that opened up a whole nother aperture, which I never even knew. Amputees running with artificial legs. And when I saw this man run and jump with an artificial leg, I knew I was going to have a leg made for running. So as I continue to elevate my career and build programs in the world-class athlete programs in a new profession, I also began running and learning how to run again and jump again on an artificial leg. And 4 years later, I go to Sydney, Australia, and I earned the silver medal in the long jump in Sydney. I mean, we just have to be open to begin to take the steps in the revision because we don't know what the vision is going to be. But it does come with a hurdle. And the revision hurdle is you must attack your own hurdle. I've had the world's best hurdle coaches. They've never ran over a hurdle for me. I have to attack the hurdles that are in my life. And then that leads us into the renewal. So because of that, the work is hard. When you make a commitment to something, like when the doctor amputated my leg, I don't get my leg back. I've said that. So therefore, I'm no longer an expert in walking with two legs. I become a neophyte walking on one and trying to learn how to walk on a prosthesis. So I now have to give myself space and grace to grow. Any executive that's gone into from the C-suite to the CEO position, you don't know how to be a CEO. You've seen it, but you don't know how to be it till you're actually in it. You don't know how to manage all the personnel issues that are coming up, leading into your HR, making sure that your HR is actually in the room and they're not just trying to band-aid fix everything that you just messed up, right? So as a CEO, when I was the CEO of the Amputee Coalition, I made sure my HR person was in that room. I want to know everything that were my blind spots so that I could actually advance and move the organization forward swiftly and quickly. And so we just don't know those things. We have to get people around us that we can trust, that have our like-mindedness, that are inside of our framework of our vision, our mission, and our values to the organization. And so that's the work, the growth that we have of giving ourselves space and grace to grow, and that equals our reward. And the reward is not a destination. Reward is a plateau for the next level of the growth in our lives, which goes back into the reckoning moment again.
Yeah, I love that model. And this is applicable to any change, any, unexpected change in our life. And, the reality is, of course, we all experience our own version of hurdles, and at times these are invitations to be able to reassess and say, okay, what is it time for me to let go of? What is, in some cases not serving us anymore? And to be able to accept the new reality, as we say it. So, what do you think is important for individuals, leaders to know, from a resilience standpoint? So many people are truly suffering now. There are some dark days, there's a lot of stuff going on. It can get incredibly overwhelming, to the point that sometimes leaders can find themselves shutting down a little bit, or, really needing a vacation. And then when they take some time, it's hard to come back. So, what do we need to practice to build our resilience capacity?
I'd like to start with the vacation because we all want a vacation. See, I'm on vacation right now. No, I'm not. I'm just this is my full background, y'all. So I'm not really there. I just don't want you to see all the boxes behind me. That's all. Uh, the With the military, when we come back from campaign, we recover our equipment. We take a break. We take a respite because we've been in high op tempo for a very long time, and we need 30 days, sometimes 45 days. The commander gives us to just leave. Okay, because we need that to come before we come back to go back into another high op tempo again. For athletes always have a rest after the season is over, and in the micro rest in between practice sessions. So if I have a hard practice session on a Tuesday, I'm not going to have another hard practice session on a Wednesday because my muscles, my body would not have recovered fully to run at the optimum level. So rest breaks need to be planned as part of the plan. So did you plan out your 2025 and 2026 for the rest breaks that you're going to take after the hardest parts of the year that you have found in whatever cycle that you are in? Because you need them. And you also need to make sure that your team members are taking that rest as well. I think this goes into resilience from the standpoint of, if we look at the word resilience, most people look at this word as the bounce back. But oftentimes we can look at this as, what do I need to self-care? And do I have the wherewithal, the vulnerability to ask for help? Because in the word resilience, which has 10 letters, embedded in those words, in those letters, is the word silence. How do we begin to hear our own voice in the resilience? Right. And oftentimes I think what we don't do is take that respite for us to hear our own voice. We call it that, but we don't put our phones down. We don't, we're busy. We're checking it at the dinner table or on the plane or wherever we are. And we don't take that respite to really begin to hear and take that time. I think the third thing then is seeing other people, right? So empathizing with where others are. Um, there is not right or wrong, but the CEO of Amazon was saying that everybody's going back into the office, right? We don't care. Everybody la-di-da is back into the office. What I share with that is, I'm not saying that's a right or wrong decision. What I'm saying is, let's look at that as how leadership uh, dictates. And so, how we're going to measure ourselves against the values. If that's what we want to say, then Amazon's already said, we know that some senior leaders are not going to come back in the office like this. So they've already planned for those that might leave the organization that no longer align with the values. So begin to put things in place, whatever your values are, to make sure that the people that are on your team are actually all rowing in the same direction, that no one's really checked out. And listen to those voices, because they can really help you elevate as they're more ears around the office and the water cooler than are inside of your little sphere of influence.
Yeah, thank you. And that synchronization is absolutely key. First and foremost, the silence to kind of synchronize with ourselves, right? What is important to me? What do I want? What do I value? Am I honoring it? Am I not? Let's get in sync on that. Thoughts, emotions, behaviors. And then, of course, how do we create that coherent intention as a team? And if someone is checked out, what
Right.
can we do to support them, right? What do they need to know? I mean, do they need to know that someone's got their back, right? Kind of like we talked about earlier, right?
Right.
Because they are going to experience some hurdles too, right? So that we've got one another. It's a community, and we're all rowing in the right, same. It might be right, it might be wrong. We'll figure it out later, right? But in the same direction, doing our best. Yeah.
Sure. I think, and if you look at the model when I was talking about, that resilience model, the reckoning, the revision, and the renewal. As a leader, you can begin to see and test where people are, usually by the language that people are saying. Man, why we got to change? Why? I mean, we just went through another reorganization. Why are we doing this again? Holy cow! Can't things just be the same way? That's the reckoning. People's mindset is in the reckoning. When you start hearing things like, I begin to see it. I think we can get this going in this direction. If we just add this piece and then that piece together, we might be able to have this thing over here. That's revision. Yeah, y'all need to just catch up to where we are right now, because we're moving in this direction. We are going forward. That's renewal. So you can tell just by the language people are using where they actually are. And that's why I love this simplistic model. So you don't have to get so much in the weeds. You just listen to people. And what language are they using? And you can then know how to move them from one aspect to the next.
That's right. And oftentimes, even before we hear it in the verbal language, what we might call active resistance, it might be more passive. And that's where
Yeah.
energy comes into play. When
Yeah.
we're more in sync with ourselves, we can tune in, uh, even more acutely to shifts in other people's energy. Maybe they're leaning back a little bit, right? There's a
Yeah.
disconnection there. Maybe they are more quiet than they are. Maybe they're looking down, right? Something that is different than their typical behavior. And to get curious, to lean into
Right.
that. Say, hey, how are you feeling about this? What do I need to know? Right? What is out of alignment? What am I not seeing here? And that's an important piece, to when so that when we come to the renewal place, we've got new resources, right? So it's not just
Yeah.
a matter of let's get everybody on board, da da da. It's about what can we do to revise, as you say it, to make things better. So we're coming out on top, as you in life, right? With even greater resilience, right? More resources, right? Like, for example, you knowing that Alice is there for you no matter what. Yeah, that you
Yeah.
are loved, that you are cared for no matter what, right? That is a beautiful resource for someone to have, especially if in some cases people have stories like I'm not lovable or not lovable enough, right? If I don't X, whatever X is, then I may not be, right? If I don't provide, I may not, be as attractive, whatever that is that people tell themselves. The idea here is that it's such a beautiful iterative process of evolution, and it only happens when we come together and communicate, share what is not working, how we're feeling, and support one another.
I'm laughing because I had a conversation with another CSP CPAE colleague. So for those that don't know, CSP is Certified Speaking Professional, and the other one CPAE. I won't go into the acronym of it, but it's like the Hall of Fame speaker, right? And so I was talking to Brian Walter, another one, and so we had a conversation, and we're talking about the reckoning moment and the language of body language around what it might look like. And he was like, he's a really funny guy, right? So he's like, um, it's it's you know, that's the the kind of when you see that, they're in the reckoning, right? So that's the so I thought that was a great analogy of what you just said about the body language and noticing that in people.
Yeah, anything that's out of tune for what their default is, right,
Uh,
is usually telling us something is a little off. And so for those individuals that have experienced tremendous loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a dream, if you will, as you've experienced, or a physical limb, what guidance do you have about how to turn that around? I know it's kind of what we've been talking about, but I mean more from a personal perspective. If they were right there in front of you, what would you need them to know in their heart of hearts?
yeah, I think there are two things that I often recommend. They're not easy, um, but it's like right now I have this cold, right? So I have to take this medication. I don't like taking the medication, but I know the medication is going to work eventually. And so you have to just go through the process. It does us no good to sit and stoop and just think about and think about and think about what has happened to us because we go down these downward spirals. So we have to get moving. We have to activate ourselves. And one way we can do that is by going out and maybe volunteering or helping others because it gets us moving, right? It's not to, like I said, the inspiration when we started out this morning on the show. It's not to say that my I'm better off than someone else. It's the action of moving and moving into giving worth, and you feel that you are still empowered to give because you do have that. This is only temporary. I think the second thing is after it is the moving itself. So what can you do today? We are talking earlier about Traction, the book Traction by Gino Wickman, and the three big rocks, right? I often have times, I get caught in the weed stuff, the sand and the water and stuff, and I don't get to my big rocks. So I'm
Do you
focused
mind,
in.
John, for a moment, just to tell people who haven't heard about that, a little bit about that metaphor?
Yeah, so the metaphor is you have a glass that's filled. You can fill it with a lot of things. If you fill it with water and you fill it with or sand, and those are the things that fill the glass up. And so if those are like the little tasks that you have throughout the day, you can fill the glass up with all those little tasks, but then you can't put the big rocks in that you really need to get done. The big rocks are the big projects that are going to move the organization forward. So the thought is put the big rocks in first, right? And then you can fill it. All the other stuff will fill in around it. The interruptions, the telephone calls that come in, the your siblings call you, or you get your wife comes in and says, "Hey, I got an emergency over here," and all those distractions that happen. At least you got the rocks done for the day that are going to move the organization forward.
So, kind of as we complete here, I want you to imagine that there is a young child that's being born into this world, precious new life, and you are its guide, right? You are here to give it some wisdom,
Mhm.
help it in life, right, through its own hurdles. What is that wisdom?
Go back in. Go back in. Run away. you know, I I'm often believing, I don't remember who said the quote. It's Mark Twain or somebody. It's the old quote of, the two most important days in your life: the day that you're born and the day you find out why. There are so many people that never find out why they were born. They just wander through life, following the crowd and not making any impact and thinking that they don't have impact in the world. So I would offer to that person to find your why as fast as you can. Why, what is your, keep asking questions, ask questions and more questions to find out what you were designed to do. You are a DNA print. There's no one else like you in this world, not even if you're a twin or a triplet. There's no one else that's like you. So you were designed to do one specific thing. Find out what that thing is. I am fortunate that, when I left the United States Olympic Committee in 2019, I knew my why I was designed, what I was designed to do. And that is to breathe life into others, into CEOs, into executives, so that their organizations can be whole, can be complete, can do and can do and be designed to do exactly what they wanted that widget to do for people, right? Um, and I helped move the barriers and the hurdles out of their way, advising them on how to move those things out of the way, those rocks out of the way, right? To get to those core issues.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And again, a reminder that sometimes, as you started out, these two careers that you dreamed and imagined that you would do, neither one played out in the way that you expected. And a tremendous loss became something that I imagine sparked the why.
Yeah, it's I remember being in a veterans entrepreneurship class, 35 of us, and Miss Pat Enriquez was teaching this class. And she says, she's a little bitty gal, and she built out like a lot of government contracts on airport lands in like Washington, uh, DCA airport. And she said, what's the most important thing in business? We all got it wrong. She said the most important thing in business is how are you going to wrap it up? How are you going to shut it down? How are you going to give it on, put it on the stock exchange? You're going to give it to your kids? What's the end state? And I said, wow, that is profound, because she was taking into consideration that we're successful in the business and that we are so successful that we have something to give, bequeath, or do something with. And then it wrestled with me for like 6 months. I couldn't put it down. It was because I wanted to know what I wanted at the end of my life. And I wanted my God to say, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I'm going to make you rule over much. I was like, whoa, if I could live like that, because that is adding life. And so it's really easy to see for me. I help others to try to see it as well. If I'm breathing life into others, there is no place for me. I cannot be operating in concert with my creator if I'm taking life away. If I'm negative on another group or another individual, that cannot be adding life. It's impossible. It's either you're adding it or you're taking it away. And I don't want to be one that's taking that life away. I want to be breathing life constantly into people.
Well, thank you for doing that for me and for all of us today.
Absolutely.
How can we learn even more?
Well, thanks for asking that. I have uh, this Elevate Life community that I'm building. I started it because people wanted to say they wanted to be connected, and so I just started a community, and it grows a little, small. It's growing, but it's an international group of executives, and we have a woman who actually does a little mastermind for us. She's out of the Netherlands, and We have another person that comes in every once in a while from like Kazakhstan, and so they're all. You get a chance to learn from an international community, and it's on. I think it's the site is John Register, my name, dot beehive. That's BEEHIIV.com. So John Register dot beehive, BEEHIIV.com. And this community, it's just every Saturday I make a post of 5 things I learned from a leader that I interviewed on the Wednesday before in a podcast. And I take those leadership lessons and we break them down. We give to one community the what of the conversation and the why we're having this conversation, and to another group that's kind of behind the paywall, we do the how. So what are the strategies that we need to employ in order to get to the next level in our business? So it's a really fun little community, and we do um, what's it once a month we do like a elevate life masterminding, and just kind of showing up and helping each other with whatever we need to work on.
Beautiful. Community is so important. Thank you for
Yes.
creating that. Well, I wish you continued success, thriving, fulfillment, breathing life first and foremost into yourself, and then, of course, to the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Game Changers. It's Vered. I wanted to acknowledge you for tuning in to the Mindset Game podcast, for listening to these episodes. I imagine you got a whole lot from this conversation with John Register. I know that I did. He is such a good person, as well as just being such an inspiration. If you want to tune in to another episode that is about kind of rising, if you will, from adversities, I invite you to check out episode 162 with Jason Shesterly, who went through a horrific accident with massive burns all over his body. He is just a beautiful soul with an incredible story. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So I hope you enjoy it. All my love, and thank you so much for being a part of this community.